What is going on, everybody? In this video, we're going to go over the answers for quiz number 4. And if you're new to this channel, feel free to like and subscribe. And if you're returning from one of my previous videos, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the videos, how I can improve, other questions you might have. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. If we look at question number 1, this question, all my quizzes start off easy and then they get harder. And this quiz is mostly about the abstract equality operator and the strict equality operator. Abstract has 2 equals and strict has 3 equals. The abstract, the 2 equals, allows for type coercion, which means it'll try to match the types first and then compare the value. And then strict means it's not going to do any type coercion. It's going to take the types as they are and it'll compare type and value. So if we look at this first example, 5 is equal to string number 5. What's going to happen here is the string 5 will be converted into a number, or you can think about it being converted into a number in your head, and then it's going to compare the number 5 to number 5. And so that will be true. It's going to run through some logic and behind the scenes that actually try to make that conversion and try to work its way to a number. First one here is true. Next one, we have 5 is strictly equal, equality operator to string number 5. So number, string, those are 2 different. That's false. That'll give us true false here. And if you notice over here on the right, we have a little table just to give us some overview of kind of what's going on here. If you have a number and a string, the string will try to force its way to a number, coerce its way to a number. You have a string and a number, same thing. String will work its way to a number. As you can kind of see, that's kind of what's going on here. Everything is trying to work its way to a number, and then JavaScript will try to compare it, the value after it's worked its way to a number here. We have a Boolean and an any. So anytime you have a Boolean and anything else, the Boolean is going to try to get to a number, right? So as you can see, everything's going to a number here. We have an object and a primitive. Primitive is going to be anything that's not an object really, but it's going to be your Boolean, your strings, your numbers. And your object is when it's being compared with a primitive in the abstract operator. That's what this is for. This is for abstract operations, your abstract equality operator here. Your object is going to try to work its way to a primitive. There's actually a toPrimitive method there. And null and undefined, that's a special case. That's true. Null and anything else, well, that's false. Undefined and anything else, well, that's also false. If you have 2 objects, you're going to compare by reference. That's for the abstract operator, the abstract equality operator, yes. The objects still compare by reference, which is what the strict equality operator will do. And you have the same type. Well, that's your base case. That's where you're trying to get to, right? Number. Everything gets to a number. Well, then you compare normally. This is kind of a cheat sheet, kind of in the back of your head. What is going on? How's JavaScript thinking about it? That's how you should be thinking about it. So enough of the table. Let's go into question number 2 here. We have const A is assigned null. We have a const B is assigned to undefined. Equals for the first one. We just learned that this is a special case. The creators of JavaScript said this is true. So that is going to be true. And we have null and undefined being compared to each other, right? this is the strictly equals operator, equality operator. So what's going on here? Well, if you think about the types first, you have null and undefined. Null is an object, right? The architects of JavaScript said, let's make this bad boy an object because we like to confuse everybody, and we hate everybody, and we want people to suffer when they work with JavaScript. So they said, let's make null an object. That makes sense. So you have an undefined is, well, undefined. So you have an object and undefined. Well, that's false, right? Two different types. First one we said was true, false. Answer is A. Let's get on to the next one. All right. Question number 3. We have 3 objects here, 3 const variables. I just called them objects because I saw obj 3, 3 of them. So the first one is assigned to value 42 here, this object. The next one we have value 42, so the same one, but I'll explain a little bit more here in a minute. And then we have object 3 and object 1. Object 3 is being assigned object 1. So this is actually getting, this is pointing to object 1. The memory location, the reference of object 1 is being assigned to object 3. That's important. Object 1 and 2, they're going to have their own places in memory. They don't know about each other. They don't care about each other. They just know they're here. One's in one house, one's in another house down the neighborhood. So that's important to know. Object 3, well, he's pointing at object 2's house down the neighborhood. That's where he's pointing at. So you have 2. You have object 3 is pointing to object 1. Object 1 is its own house. Object 2 is its own house. All right, let's look at this question. So abstract equality operator for the first one. It's kind of the theme. I always go over that one first, and then the easier questions are always the strictly equals in some cases. So object 1 equal object 2. These are, like we covered over here, you have object and object. They're going to be compare by reference, right? And we just went over that they are in 2 different memory locations. They're in 2 different houses in the neighborhood, right? They don't know about each other. Maybe they saw each other one day picking up the mail or taking out the trash. But right now, they're in 2 different memory locations. That's going to be false, right? Those are not equals to each other. All right, I think I drilled that home enough. Let's go on to, so that's false, right? So looks like there's only one answer here. But let's go over the next one. We have object 1 is strictly equals to object 3. Already mentioned, object 3 is pointing, he is assigned to the reference of object 1. So it's almost like he's living in the same house as object 1. That's not even a good analogy because it is object 1 at this point, right? So it is the same house. So you have object 1 is strictly equals to object 3. That's going to be true. It's the same reference. We have false then true. Enough said about this one. If you have questions, put it in the comments and let's discuss it. All right, final question. This is going to get everybody, maybe, unless you've seen it before. It got me the first time. That's because I'm brain dead. So let's go over question number 3 here. So we have the equals, the abstract equality operator, right? We know what this does. This does type coercion. We have an empty array, and then we have not empty array, right? So what is going on here? Well, we know an empty array, that is an object, and objects are truthy. They are truthy values. We have not empty array, so we have not object. We have not truthy. Not truthy is false. So this value here is false. And then we have an empty array here. This is an object. And so if we have false and an object, what do we know? We have an object and a primitive. A Boolean is a primitive. So the object is going to try to work its way to a primitive, right? So we have false. We have object, which is truthy. But when you convert an array into its primitive, the toString method is going to be, right? That's what's going to happen here. It's going to go from an object to a string, because the value, it'll actually do, it'll look at the value of this first, but an empty array is an empty array. So it's going to go to a string, which is going to be an empty string. The empty string is now being compared to false, right? Back over here, we learned that a Boolean and any, the Boolean goes to a number, right? So false is 0. That's how that works. And then now you have a string and a number. Well, the string is going to go to a number, right? So now you have string and 0. Well, an empty string, the value of an empty string is 0. So now you have 0 equals 0. So it's true. So we ended up with a false and truthy value. And we ended up, right? So that doesn't make sense in your head if you just hear someone told you, is truthy equal to false? No. But we actually ended up with false and false for that. So that's true. So number 1 is true here. So it's either A or it's either B or C here. Sorry about that. Let's look at the second one. Well, we learned this is false, and this is an object. 2 different types. We're strictly comparing here. So that's false, right? 2 different types, object and a Boolean. So we have false here. All right, console log. And now we want not empty array and false. Well, we learned that this is a false value, and we already have false. So we have false and false, same type, compare normally, that's true. So we end up getting a false, true, or a true, false, true, which is C. There we go. And we loop back to the first question, and that concludes quiz number 4. If you enjoyed watching it, if you got this far, be sure to subscribe, like the video, leave comments. I want to communicate with my community. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.